For you today, I'm over here keeping it real with my bad hair day beanie on. I am feeling better. Thank you guys so much for the well wishes. I had put a little post in the community tab, if you hadn't seen it, just explaining my lack of videos last week was just due to some illness that I managed to pick up from somebody somewhere, probably my kids. Anyway, we're going to talk about some sales. There's quite a few, so we're going to get through it pretty quickly here. But I also, before we get started, I wanted to thank an anonymous donor on my Buy Me a Coffee link who sent us a coffee. I don't think there was a name or anything, but whoever you are, thank you so much. And then also a viewer here, Mailbox Memories Ashley, sent us a super thanks. So we do appreciate that so much. The little extra tips and things like that do help us quite a bit. Anyway, so let's talk about the end of April, beginning of May. We have most of my sales were on eBay that week. The other platforms were a little bit slower. But starting off with a sale of some items that I don't usually sell so much anymore. I used to sell these a lot. I used to look for wallpaper border in interesting themes and patterns and things like that. So we had these for quite a while, and they finally, this lot of 3 sold for $20. I don't even remember if we picked them up at the bins or someplace like that. I'm not quite sure. Next up is something Mr. Pish Posh picked up because of his German heritage. He noticed these at a thrift store. They were having a sale because I had seen them at the thrift store, kind of higher priced, but they were having like a 50% off sale or something, and they were so happy to have them move. And they sold for $69.99. They were lederhosen. So we might even have a picture of my son wearing a set. I don't even remember, when he was like 1 year old or something. So it's just part of that posh German heritage. So it caught his eye, and these would be perfect for some Oktoberfest coming up. And then I sold this bracelet, clear lucite square bangle bracelet, sold for $20. I was happy to take an offer on that. It was actually pretty cool. I do find that it's interesting. People do, like with rings and with bracelets, they want to see it on you, which kind of doesn't make sense because like my wrist is small, my hand is small, and their hand and wrist could be a totally different size. But people still like to kind of get, I don't know, a sense of proportion or a sense of what it would look like on. So I usually, nothing special. I just throw a picture in there, wearing whatever it is, not necklaces or earrings or anything like that, but on my hand. Okay, here's the brand. Also, I don't necessarily always pick up. It's Guess. Okay, and the reason I picked this one up is because it was a Western shirt, but mostly because it was a Western shirt with embroidery. So, Guess is not just a Western brand, but this was a style that they went with. And when I did a Western shirt video in the past, I remember mentioning that like brand will not matter so much if there's embroidery or some kind of elaborateness to the Western shirt. Just a plain pearl snap might not be super exciting, but having this cobra embroidery on it, I knew would help it to do well. And so that sold for $26. Nothing crazy to write home about, but it moved pretty quickly. And that is always a good result. This one I took an offer for $15. I think there was some little message, and I have not been listing my jewelry, so therefore my jewelry has not been selling. It's just the way it works. And so I was just kind of happy to see some kind of interest in one of my jewelry pieces. I had sold that other lucite bangle, so that might have like bumped my listings a little bit. And so anyway, $15, buyer was super happy, and I moved a piece on. What am I doing? Okay, next up, this was kind of a funny story. So you'll see 2 of these in my what solds. They sold really quickly. I got these at my local thrift store. Now, this is the thrift store that's connected to my clearance store, the same company, right? And so I was looking through my comments on one of my videos, and one of my viewers is local, and I don't remember your full name. It's Big Mountain something. But anyway, she said that she had found one of these exact types of shirts at our local clearance store. And when she was researching comps, she found my listings, right? So let me show you the label. These are really unusual. They're vintage Columbia. So Columbia knit, Portland, Oregon, rugby gear, made in the USA. Such an amazing label. I love it. Anyway, so for some reason, 2 of these shirts made it to the main store where I bought them. I think I paid it was half off day, so I paid like $4 a piece. And she got hers at the clearance store. So I just thought that was really funny. But anyway, this one sold for $30. This one was an as is the way we listed it, just because of some issues on it. It was a little bit more beat up than the other one I sold, but still $30 pretty quickly was pretty nice. Small little confession here. You guys tell me what you would have done. Okay, so this is a glass canister. The company is called Rock, R-O-K. Now, Mr. Pish Posh found this at the thrift store one day, and he looked it up, and he's like, oh, I see what it's for. So basically, you can put your coffee beans or you put your grounds in this canister, and you can, the lid, actually goes all the way down. It goes, you can follow the level of your coffee grounds, right? So it makes it airtight. And we were like, oh, that's really cool. So we used it for a long time. And we hated it because the coffee grounds would get caught in this seal. And so then every time you pulled the lid back up, your coffee grounds would go all over the place. So I'm sure if you were very careful every single time not to actually touch the coffee grounds, it still would be pretty airtight. And coffee beans would be no problem, right? So, we listed it. We didn't mention that we hated it, so are we really under an obligation to reveal what we didn't like about it? Because somebody else might not have that problem, I guess. Maybe they're going to use it for beans, I don't know. And maybe they were smarter than us and figured out quickly not to push it down too far. Anyway, what would you guys have done? This sold for $22.49. I got good feedback. I don't know. So they're probably happy with it. Okay, Lenox Archway. I usually pick this pattern up because it sells. These are salad forks, $23.99 for 3 of them. I wouldn't say it I think I listed some other pieces, and these might have been the only ones that have sold so far. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, it sells. I see it not super often, but kind of often. Wusthof, new with tags, little channel knife, citrus peeler kind of thingy, sold for $22.49. I don't remember where this came from. Mr. Pish Posh must have grabbed this somewhere, some thrift adventure. Nice pair of Clark's Cloud Steppers. They sold for $31.49. They were in really good condition. For some reason, my thrift store has been getting, I don't know if they're getting cast-offs from TJ Maxx or I don't know, someplace, but I've been finding quite a bit of new condition Clarks. So, and they're not pricing them up. So, so far. So I've picked up a few styles here and there that I think are good, and this one was not bad for $31.49. Clarks are just kind of it's one of those bread and butter. I try to stick with really good condition pairs. What's next? We've got this Cacique bra sold for $20. I think we're pretty much done with the Cacique bras that I talked about in the last video, that I found at Goodwill one day. A whole bunch new with tags. Here's the Royal Dalton figurine. I've already talked about this in a previous video, but this did sell for $450. So if you're new here, Just a quick story, I thrifted it for $2.50. Not all Royal Dalton figurines are going to sell for $450, but this was a special one. It was in excellent condition, and it was part of a series that just is super collectible. And you can just tell, you know, there's figurines all over the thrift stores, but the quality on this one was so much nicer, which is what made it catch my eye. And then I remember making a post on Facebook about this, that I sold the figurine for $450, and then I sold a plate a few minutes later for $12.99. And I love both sales. Like, it's just like, they're both so much fun. This is an Arabia of Finland plate in the windflower pattern, and it was at my little local clearance store, and I spotted it and I was like, oh, that's something. And I was right, it was Arabia. But it's just a little bread and butter plate, you know, so it's not like a bread plate. And so, you know, I knew it wasn't going to be huge money. But my buyer was super happy with it. I seem to remember getting good feedback. This was one of my earliest reels on Facebook, I think, that actually did kind of well. Months and months ago, we found this at the clearance store, and it was funny because Mr. Pish Posh said, like, the new shelving came out with new goods, fresh goods, and he saw a lady like grab this like right in front of him, and he was like, no. But then later we were, you know, going past the carts, other shelving, and there it was, just sitting on the shelf. So that happens a lot of times. The fresh carts come out, people grab, and then they kind of go through their stuff and so you'll see other stuff, you know. It pays to kind of peruse the shelves a few times after new carts come out, because a lot of stuff gets put back in other places. Does that make sense? It sold for $25. Here's a bunch of kitchen knives that Mr. Pish Posh lotted up. 10 of them for $30. There's some good names in there, but nothing particularly wonderful by itself, and some were like not like great names, so he just kind of threw those together, and it sold for $30. So just an idea. We haven't recreated it yet, but we'll see if we try to do that again. We see there's knives all over the clearance store. So here is the other Columbia knit. We sold this one for $40. I had put 60 on both, I think on both, 60 and 50 maybe on both, just because I wasn't sure. There were some comps, but, you know, every pattern colorway is a little bit different. And so I was trying to get a feel for, you know, where my buyer was going to be at that. So when I just got offers on them, you know, they were decent, so I took them. So again, here's that lovely little label, vintage label. $40. I said that right? Did I? Okay, Starlink. I think Mr. Pish Posh picked this up at Goodwill one day, and it sold for $67.49. It's a router for Starlink. We use Starlink, so he was a little familiar with it. We live in Montana, and there's lots of parts of the area where Starlink is pretty much the only way you're going to get any kind of internet that is halfway decent. This video brought to you by Starlink. Okay, I wish. Anyway, okay, this is actually quite a hefty offer that we accepted on this. The offer came in $20. Mr. Pish Posh texted me and said, yeah, just go ahead and take that offer. He probably was just shooting for the moon on this one. $50 for this barn door roller guide hardware. So, you know, he's always just scavenging and cleaning stuff out. So he was happy to move that along for $20. And then maybe there was something to my little jewelry boost, but I got some attention on these earrings. They're Renoir. Renoir and Matisse can be good sellers for mid-century jewelry, but mostly the ones with enamel on them. And so, but I like the little fleur-de-lis pattern on this. So these did sell for $14.50 on an offer. Some flatware. This, you know, I found some pieces of this, now maybe a bag at Goodwill on the bag wall, I think. Cambridge Lodge Frost Mountain Sand something. Dinner forks. This is one of those situations where like the forks had bears and the knives had a moose and the, that kind of thing. Maybe the salad forks had a little cabin or a lodge. So I only had maybe 6 pieces, something like that, but they all sold like really quickly. Maybe I only had 4 pieces. I'm not sure. These sold for $21. It's kind of the thing would be sold at Cabela's or someplace like that. Here's a nice sale on a knife that Mr. Pish Posh picked up down while we were traveling. The brand is Misen, M-I-S-E-N. To me, this looks like, I don't know, an Amazon knife or something like that, but he looked it up, I guess, and saw that they were selling for pretty good money, and it sold for $49.99. I think I have talked about Emma Bridgewater. Do you guys know about Emma Bridgewater as far as mug bolos? I know I talked about it in at least one video that I did on coffee mugs. Here's the bottom, what it looks like. Toast and marmalade, Emma Bridgewater, made in England. And, it's kind of, this large print is kind of iconic for the Emma Bridgewater stuff, although there's other styles and patterns. This one says a very useful mug on it, and it was small, like little half pint kind of thing. So I got this at our local antique mall, and it was like, I think I maybe showed it in a video, but it was like $8. Was it 6 to 8? I think it was $8, but I was like, oh, Emma Bridgewater, I'm gonna buy that, and that sold for $29. These pants we have had for a long time, at least over a year, maybe 2. Anyway, these are, as you can see, slash back canvas. So we just kind of, they're kind of advertise them for reenactment, cosplay, for like frontier Western style with the lace up fly and that kind of thing. So anyway, they finally sold for $32. I remember getting them at a yard sale where everything was $1, which is probably why I grabbed them. Okay. Again, a very satisfying sale. Sold for $20, but it was the clearance store on one of the new shelves that came out. It's just sitting there. It's for a specific kind of camera. I knew the brand because my son had bought something by Joby before, a little tripod, and I don't know, I just grabbed it. I might have scanned it just to double check that they were actually selling, and I sold it for $20. And lovely, lovely sale. So this was one of the first estate sales that I went to this summer. I have not really been yard selling and estate selling. My weekends have been kind of crazy. So I kind of missed that. One weekend I was available, but there really didn't seem to be anything I wanted to go to. So I didn't, and I tried to use my time more wisely for some other things that needed to get done. Oh, I have your title. You can't read that. So anyway, at this estate sale, I got this bunch of cassettes, blank cassettes that they were trying to clear out. And out of the bunch, there was a few of these vintage metal cassettes. So that's something to keep in mind. They're type 4, which is good, and they were metal, and so we ended up listing some of these individually, and this was the first one that sold for $44.99. So I paid, it was one of those like bundle pile kind of things, so my big pile was like $15 or something. So that was fun. It was exciting, and you'll see some more sales of the cassettes in future videos. But let's go over to Poshmark. This Calypso St. Bart linen shirt sold for $29. Not surprising. I had it listed for a few months, but once the weather started warming up, that's when it finally moved. And not my best mug sale ever. $10 for this hummingbird and fuchsia flower coffee mug, but at least it's moved on. Another clearance store find. Mr. Pish Posh brought this over to me. He's like, lady over there said that these are valuable. And, the most valuable ones are going to be the really vintage ones, 80s, 90s of that are marked Pleasant Company on them. This is American Girl. I think I had narrowed it down. It either had the date 2013 on it or I narrowed it down. And I didn't actually get a name. There's so many different ones and variations, especially in the newer ones, that I just decided to describe her. And she needed a little bit of cleanup, but she had a lot of, Mr. Pish Posh was able to get some marker off her face, but there was all sorts of other marks on her arms and legs and things like that. So $36 for that one. And then another nice pair of spring step shoes that we picked up and sold. They sold for $49. As you can see what it looks like inside. I was glad I learned about this spring step brand because now I am on the lookout for it. This was a fun Goodwill find. These Wrangler Lainey Wilson bell-bottom pants. They were I think they were denim type material, right? But the stripe. There's some other patterns. There's if you find ones that are the Aztec pattern, whatever, the prices will be a lot higher. But, very kind of trending right now. So $40 for those. And then a pair of work shorts by Black Ladder. I can't remember if are they Swedish? It's one of those companies. It's European, but it was ripstop fabric. Anyway, those sold for $30. And then I don't think... Oh, yeah. One more sale that week was a pair of inserts, Atrex orthotics, sold for $23. It was just a Goodwill pickup. One sale on Depop that week. Some stationery by Lisa Frank, some vintage stationery. These only sold for $18. But I had another pattern, if you remember, with cows that sells for a little bit more. This one, the demand wasn't so high, so I was just glad to kind of move that along. Then over on Etsy, one sale in the Etsy shop that week. Amarok 2-piece lot of carriage house, an outlet, and a wall switch cover plate kind of thing. Sold for $28. And then in the pattern shop, we just had 4 patterns that week. $12 for this Simplicity 2-hour jacket pattern. I think probably from the 90s. Come on. Don't fail me now, internet. Okay. Here we go. Cat beds for $12. Oh, it just skipped right over it. Maybe I deleted it. I think I hit it twice, and so when I hit it twice, it was an X. And I deleted it. Okay, those were cat beds for $12. These are kid beds for $17. They're like animal beanbag style, little craft pattern. $17, not too bad for that. And then Quick Sew. I've had this one listed for quite a while. $18. Quick Sew is one of those that comes to you sealed. Let me see what the back looks like because it looks kind of wrinkly. Yeah, it was open. It was like taped shut. It's kind of a mess, but everything inside of it I think was folded up. Still an unused, so that one from the 70s sold for $18. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the 70s because it had an embroidery transfer thing on it too. Okay, hopefully, I don't know, my voice feels kind of weird today, so hopefully you could hear me okay, and I will talk to you guys soon. As always in a What Sold video, leave me a comment down below about your sales. How have they been going? We're into June now, so people start talking about like the summer slowdown and like all that kind of thing. So let's see what we can do this summer to combat that, and we will talk to you hopefully later on this week.